Hi, I'm Linda, and this is Beautiful Thrift Homemaking. Welcome. We're reading through a vintage cookbook from 1917 called A Thousand Ways to Please a Husband. This book is a reprint that I have. It's reprinted by Dover Publications, and we are beginning the month of September. Apple tree, crowned with delight, give me your fruit for a pie, if you will. Crusty I'll make it, and juicy and light. Give me your treasure to mate with my skill. And there's an illustration, and you can see the full coverage apron that she's wearing, along with her little cooking cap. Okay, so apples are the theme for these two chapters today, chapter 45 and 46. Ruth makes an apple pie. I'll tell you, Ruth, said Bettina in answer to some questions. You come home with me now and make an apple pie for our dinner. I'll watch and direct you, and perhaps I can show you what made the crust tough on the one you made at home. Do come. I can't promise you an elaborate dinner tonight, for my funds are very low and I must be careful. But I had planned to make an apple pie myself. Bob is so fond of it that no matter what else we may have, an apple pie dinner is a feast to him. But goodness, Bettina, I might spoil it. No, you wouldn't, and I would show you just what to do. I suspect that you handled the dough too much before, and that was what made the pie seem tough. I suppose I did. I was so anxious to have it well mixed. Did you use your fingers in mixing in the shortening? I know that many good cooks do it, but it is really better to use a knife with the blade flat. And then roll the pastry out just as lightly as possible. Do you make pastry with lard or butter? I usually make it with an equal amount of each. Lard makes a more tender crust than butter and a whiter crust, but I think butter gives it a better flavor. Bettina and Ruth had reached home by this time, and Bettina brought out the materials for Ruth's pie. I'll give you ice water to moisten the pastry, said she. It isn't necessary, but it is really better in the summertime. And while you're mixing in the shortening with this knife, I'll be cooking some eggs hard for eggs a la goldenrod, which I'm going to give you tonight. Eggs a la goldenrod, exclaimed Ruth. How good that does sound. It is a very good luncheon dish, but I find it also good for dinner when I'm not having meat. I think it looks appetizing too. I must learn how to make it. You know, Father comes home at noon, and it is hard to think of a variety of luncheon dishes. I usually have eggs or cheese in some form or other, but eggs a la goldenrod are new to me. We also have cottage cheese tonight, said Bettina. I plan to make it about once a week. Ruth, I believe I hear Bob now. Well, he'll have to wait half an hour or more for his dinner. That night they had eggs a la goldenrod, potato cakes, strained honey, cottage cheese, bread, butter, apple pie, and coffee. And in this cookbook we have the recipes for Bettina's eggs a la goldenrod, potato cakes, cottage cheese, and some of Bettina's pastry rules are listed as well. And we'll discuss those in a moment. Now on to chapter 46. Bettina makes apple jelly. What have you been doing? Asked Bob as he and Bettina sat down to dinner. Oh, Bob, I've had the nicest day. Mom phoned me this morning that Uncle John had brought her several big baskets of apples from the farm, and that if I cared to come over to help, we would put them up together and I might have half. Well, we made apple jelly, plum and apple jelly, and raspberry and apple jelly. I had made all these before and knew how good they were, but I learned something new from Mother that has made me feel happy ever since. And so you came home and in your enthusiasm made this fine dandy peach cobbler for dinner? Bob, that was the very way I took to express my joy. Well, What is this wonderful new apple concoction? Perhaps it isn't new, but it was new to me. It is an apple and mint jelly, and I know it will be just the thing to serve with meat this winter. How do you make it? I hope you are noticing how interested I'm becoming in all the cooking processes. Well, I washed and I washed and cut into small pieces 4 pounds of greening apples. Then I washed and chopped fine 1 cup of fresh mint and added it to the apples. I covered the mixture with water and cooked it all till the apples were so tender that they were falling to pieces. I strained it then and used 3/4 of a cup of sugar for each cup of juice. I cooked this till the mixture jellied, and then I added 4 teaspoons of lemon juice and enough green vegetable color paste to give it a delicate color. Isn't that coloring matter injurious? Oh no, Bob, it's exactly as pure as any vegetable, and it gives things such a pretty color. Why, I use it very often, and I'm sure that more people would try it if they knew how successful it is. It is such fun to experiment with. Of course, I never use anything but the vegetable coloring. Well, go on with the jelly. What next? That's all, I think. I just poured it into glasses, and there it is, waiting for you to help me carry it home from Mother's. Now, Bob, won't that be good next winter with cold roast beef, or cold veal roast, or cold roast veal? I know it will be just the thing to use with a pork roast. I'm growing very enthusiastic. Sounds fine. But speaking of cooking, this is a mighty good dinner. I like peach cobbler as well as any dessert there is. I'm glad you like it. But I forgot to tell you, Bob, that I am to have all the apples I can use in the fall. Uncle John has promised them to me. Then Mother says we'll make cider. Won't that be fun? I should say it will. Cider and donuts and pumpkin pie makes me long for fall already. But then I like green corn and watermelon and peaches, so I suppose I can wait. That evening, Bettina served sliced beef loaf, sautéed potatoes, creamed corn, cinnamon rolls, butter, peach cobbler, cream. And the recipes are here for the sautéed potatoes, the creamed corn, the cinnamon rolls, the peach cobbler. So join me in just a sec and we will discuss these 2 chapters. Thank you. All right, well, here we are for our discussion of chapters 45 and 46, and we're in the month of September now, which is pretty exciting. All right, so we have today apples and peaches again. So let's see what's done with those 2 things, the summer fruits. Now, Ruth had made an apple pie, and she complained that it didn't come out that great. Her crust was tough. So Bettina said, make an apple pie over at my house, and I'll observe what you do and guide you. And so that's what they did. They did that project together at Bettina's home, and Bettina showed her how to achieve a tender crust. And she said, don't worry, because anytime there's apple pie, Bob thinks that whatever I have for dinner is just the best. And I can't quite disagree with that. So 1 tip, don't overhandle the dough. Don't mix with your fingers. She did not explain that, but I think it's probably because the warmth of your hands can make the dough softer because it'll melt the fat that you use in it, and you want to keep your dough chilled while you're working with it. So she used the flat side of a knife to mix her dough. She said, don't press too hard when rolling. And then Ruth asked her whether she used lard or butter to make her crust. Bettina says she uses equal parts of both because she said that lard makes the most tender crust, whereas butter gives the best flavor. So we hardly find crusts made with lard anymore, but you can do that on your own in your home, of course. Now, the menu had an interesting protein source called eggs a la goldenrod, and also cottage cheese as protein. So this dinner did not have any meat in it. I'm going to read the recipe for the eggs a la goldenrod so you can see what that was. And big surprise, or I should say no surprise, it involves making a white sauce. And also I'll show you how she made her homemade cottage cheese. So let me get my book here and I'll read those to you. So first of all, we have the eggs a la goldenrod, and that is 3 hard-cooked eggs, 1 tablespoon of butter, 3 tablespoons of flour, 1½ cups of milk, 1/2 a teaspoon of salt, 1/8 a teaspoon of pepper, and 1/8 a teaspoon of parsley. Can you imagine preparing 1/8 of a teaspoon of parsley? This is 4 portions. Melt the butter, add the flour, salt, and pepper. Mix well. Add the milk gradually. Cook until a white sauce consistency. Here we go again. The famous white sauce that Bettina loves. So many recipes. Add chopped egg whites. Pour this mixture over slices of toast arranged on a platter. Force the yolks through a strainer on top of the sauce on the toast. Garnish with parsley and serve hot. All right, I can picture that. Hopefully you can too, and probably not too bad. All right, the cottage cheese directions for 4 portions are 1 quart of sour milk, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 a teaspoon of paprika, 1 tablespoon of cream. Place thick, freshly soured milk over a pan of hot water, not boiling. When the milk is warm and the curds separate from the whey, strain off the whey in a cheesecloth. Put into a bowl, add salt, pepper, and cream to taste. Stir lightly with a fork. So that's how to make cottage cheese. Let me know if you've ever tried it before and if your method is any different. Now, also in this chapter, some of Bettina's pastry rules. 1. All the materials must be cold. 2. Always roll one way and on one side of the pastry. 3. Shortening should be handled as little as possible. And in this case, she means the lard and the butter. 4. Dough should be mixed with a knife and not touched with the hands. Again, your hands will warm the dough, and you don't want that. 5. Shortening should be cut in with a knife. 6. Cook pastry in a hot oven, having the greatest heat at the bottom so that it may rise before browning. Crust is done when it slips from the pan. Okay. Now we're going to read some things from chapter 46. Bettina makes apple jelly. Bettina gets lots of apples from her Uncle John, and we met him. He was at the fair one day when Bettina was observing the honey exhibit. She ran into Uncle John. So he has apples, and he said she can have as many as she'd like. And then her mom invited her over to make jelly. They made 3 types of jelly, and then a 4th one that was new to Bettina. So they made apple jelly, plum and apple jelly, and raspberry and apple jelly. Then the one that was really exciting to Bettina was the apple and mint jelly. She looked forward to using that in the winter, to serving it with cold meats. So she said cold roast beef, cold roast pork, or cold veal would be excellent with an apple mint jelly. I noticed that she also put food coloring in it. However, even though Bob said, "Whoa, what about that?" she said, "No, this is a natural product made from vegetable color, and it's a vegetable color paste." And she loved the green color that it gave the apple mint jelly. All right, now I wanted to, and then she's going to make cider because they're going to get so many more apples from Uncle John. She's going to make cider with her mom. And Bob was really looking forward to that because he's anticipating fall where he gets to have cider and donuts and pumpkin pie. And so I'm wondering, what fall foods are you looking forward to most? Yeah, all right. Now, I think of apple pie as a fall food. So he also said, though, that he's been enjoying summer because he really likes corn and watermelon and peaches. And so Bettina made him a peach cobbler. She took 3 peaches, 3 large peaches, and I will give you the recipe. It is 1 cup of flour. This is for 2 portions of peach cobbler. 1 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/8 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon of butter, 1/4 a cup of milk, 3 good-sized peaches, 1/3 a cup sugar, 1/4 a teaspoon vanilla, 1/4 a cup sugar, and 1/4 a cup water. And the directions are to cut the butter into the dry ingredients, the baking powder, the salt, and the flour, and then add the milk. The resulting dough should be of biscuit dough consistency. Then you set that aside. You peel and slice the peaches. Mix well with the sugar, the 1/3 cup, and place on the bottom of a baking dish. Make sure your baking dish is not made of tin. Place dough shaped to fit on the top of the peaches. Make 3 holes to allow steam to escape. Bake 30 minutes in a moderate oven, which we know is about 325 to 350 degrees. Boil the sugar and water 4 minutes. When the cobbler has cooked for 20 minutes, pour the syrup over it and allow to cook 10 minutes more. Cream may be served with the cobbler if desired. Well, that just sounds delicious. My mom made a peach cobbler, and my daughter just particularly remembers loving that. And when I was going through my mother's things, I found her recipe for peach cobbler, and I saved that for my daughter. All right, now cinnamon rolls. What are cinnamon rolls doing in this menu? I don't know. They're having sauteed potatoes, sliced beef loaf, creamed corn, cinnamon rolls with butter, peach cobbler, and cream. Okay. So to make 12 rolls, cinnamon rolls, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of milk, scalded and lukewarm, 1 yeast of cake. I'm sorry, I didn't say that right, did I? 1 yeast cake, 1 yeast cake. There we go. 1/4 a cup of lukewarm water, 1 1/2 cups of flour, 3 tablespoons of butter, 4 tablespoons of sugar, 1/4 cup of butter, and 1/2 cup of sugar. Mix sugar, salt, and scalded milk. When lukewarm, add the yeast cake dissolved in 1/4 of a cup of lukewarm water. Add 1 1/2 cups flour. Cover and set in a warm place to rise. When double in bulk, add the butter, melted. 4 tablespoons sugar and more flour, enough to knead. Let rise, knead, and roll into a sheet 1/2 inch thick. Spread with a mixture made by adding melted butter, 1 1/4 cups sugar, and the cinnamon. Roll up like a jelly roll. Cut in slices 3/4 of an inch thick. Place in a pan 1 inch apart. Let rise again. Bake in a moderately hot oven 25 minutes. So I don't know about you, but cinnamon rolls are one of my absolute favorite treats, and I don't have them very often. They do take a lot of preparation time because you need to let them rise. I always think I'd like to have them on Christmas morning, but it does take too long to make for that purpose. One year, I remember a good friend of mine brought me a pan of cinnamon rolls for Christmas morning, and that was extra special. That was a beautiful gift. All right. So, just wondering, what are your favorite things about summer? Did you enjoy peaches? Did you enjoy watermelon, corn, squashes, summer squashes, the fresh tomatoes? There's nothing like homegrown tomatoes, right? Or farm stand tomatoes, as opposed to those bought in the grocery store, which have no flavor, or at least around here. Let's see, we've got some apples. We've had plums and apricots, nectarines, pluots, blueberries, cherries, There's been so many things at the farm stands and in my garden and my orchard. That summer has been a lovely time, and we've had some good foods from it. But I do look forward to fall. We have a lot of heat here, and I'm looking forward to a little bit cooler days, although I don't like to be cold. So fall means that winter's on its way. So fall seems a little too short sometimes. Just like spring seems a little short here. We've got longer summer, 6 months. It seems like summer lasts. But anyway, I have some flowers from my zinnia patch. I just got the yellow ones for this bouquet. And just a reminder that Bettina always puts something beautiful on her table to decorate it. All right, hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks for joining me. We'll see you for next one.